Out of all the organic armies that have ever existed in Star Wars, we would argue that the Grand Army of the Republic was by far the most loyal. Most other armies were made up of regular soldiers with flaws and personal desires that could stand in the way of their mission. But the clones were different. In a previous video, we explained how the Kaminoans genetically modified the clones to emphasize certain traits such as discipline, solidarity, and above else, loyalty to the Republic. The clones weren't regular men. They were super soldiers programmed to remain true to their cause. And yes, you might say that Order 66 was kind of a big deal as far as betrayals went, but even that had to be activated by a mind-embedded kill switch. Good soldiers followed orders, even if that meant going on a suicide mission for the good of the Republic. That's why stories of disloyal clone troopers were nearly unheard of. Nearly. In today's video, we'll be looking at the 6 traitor clones who betrayed the Republic before Order 66 made it cool.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Fans of our channel and Star Wars The Clone Wars are probably already familiar with our first entry, the first known clone trooper to turn against the Republic in canon. Our traitor of choice is, of course, Sergeant Slick, a clone that served in the Grand Army of the Republic at the beginning of the Clone Wars. Now every clone trooper was genetically identical, but as they gained experiences, each clone developed their own ideas and personality traits that set them apart from one another. In Slick's case, his experiences in the first Battle of Geonosis made him believe the Jedi were incompetent losers that were just using him and his brethren as slave soldiers. The end of the Jedi meant freedom for him and his brothers, so he turned on them by passing intel to the Separatists through Asajj Ventress. His run as a Separatist agent was cut short during the Battle of Christosis early on in the war. The Jedi generals leading the Republic forces planetside, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, had prepared an ambush for the approaching Separatist forces. Rather than catching the droids by surprise, however, the Jedi and clone troopers were ambushed instead. This was all thanks to Slick's leaked information. In the aftermath, the Jedi held a meeting with the 2 highest ranking clones, Captain Rex and Commander Cody. They concluded that the only logical explanation for their failure was that a traitor had given the Separatists prior notice. While the Jedi infiltrated the Separatist base, the 2 COs would locate the traitor among their forces. Unbeknownst to them, however, Slick had concealed an active comlink in the meeting room and heard everything. He was almost caught when it was found. Captain Rex rushed out into the hallway, but he only caught a distant glimpse of the escaping clone. His identity was still safe, but the commanders now knew the traitor was one of their own. Slick informed the Separatists of the Jedi's plan, but the clone commanders traced the signal of that transmission back to his team's barracks. Cody and Rex approached him first as the unit's leader, but Slick was unhelpful. Further interrogation of him and his squad led to Slick exposing himself as the traitor when he mentioned the Jedi weren't at the base, something only someone present at the meeting would have known. Slick ran. He tried to outsmart his fellow clones, but he was apprehended thanks to Cody and Rex's quick thinking and taken into custody. He may have failed to escape, but his attempt caused extensive damage to the Republic base, destroying the base's weapons depot. Even though his betrayal was covered up, it still had an impact on those who were privy to the information. The Jedi now knew the clones were capable of going against their programming, while clones like Rex realized they had more options than they thought if they ever wanted to leave the war behind them. Slick may have been the first treasonous clone, but he was far from the last. Our second entry comes to us from a lesser-known Star Wars novella titled Skywalkers, a Clone Story. This story was commissioned for Hyperspace, the official Star Wars fan club, in 2011, and served as a prequel to the 1979 comic Star Wars Annual 1, The Long Hunt, A Duel of Eagles. The novella is set very early in the Clone Wars when Anakin was still a Padawan. In 22 BBY, the genetics terrorists Zeta Magnus invaded the planet Marat 5, known locally as Sky. Magnus had committed many acts of biological terrorism across the galaxy and was affiliated with the CIS. By the Supreme Chancellor's decree, the Republic launched a mission to apprehend him and bring him to justice. Under the guise of a humanitarian mission, Obi-Wan Kenobi took Anakin, his fellow Padawan Halgard Ventor, and a unit of clone commandos which were then still new to the Grand Army of the Republic. This was Tark Squad, made up of 4 commandos, Nilo, Zoni, Quo, and Coupe. Their real objective was storming Magnus's citadel and capturing him. Once they landed on Sky and met the local Skytree people, the Republic forces used the Entomion, a subterranean cavern complex, to reach Magnus's citadel undetected. While underground, however, they were attacked by several Oscan blood eaters that Magnus had sent. These were bipedal carnivores often used as guards. Despite the obstacles, the strike team reached Magnus's complex. In the Citadel, however, Tark Squad turned on the 3 Jedi and incapacitated them while they were looking through the hallways for Magnus. Ready for the plot twist? Tark Squad were never clones. We don't blame you for missing the clues. The 4 members of Tark Squad were Theosian mercenaries trained on Kamino by Sarsius Torn, a Theus' sun guard who was allied with Magnus. Some sources state they were all clones of Sarsius himself. All 4 members were named in the Theosian language, Nilo for 0, Zoni for 1, Quo for 2, and Coupe for 3. Even the squad's name Tark meant 4. The Theosians were Sarsius' way of infiltrating the Republic army and positioning his forces to apprehend and deliver Anakin Skywalker to Darth Sidious. When the Jedi came to in Magnus' laboratory, Magnus villain monologued like the best of them. His plan was to scan their brains and implant them into clones of themselves that he had already begun growing. Unfortunately for the mad scientist, his plans were foiled by the locals and he was eventually killed by the Jedi. Or rather, the clone of himself that he'd sent in his place was killed while Magnus himself kept to his distant palace and cooked up his first deadly plague. He was a really great guy. Now, we hear you. Does this really count as a clone betrayal? Given that the Jedi were betrayed by soldiers they believed to be clones, and that we're happy to scrape the bottom of the barrel for content, we're gonna count it. But the last one was a real clone, we promise. Our final traitor was Ghost, a standard clone who differentiated himself by painting blue designs on his armor and growing a beard. Ghost was one of the first clones Kamino produced for the Grand Army of the Republic, and it only took 1 year for him to grow absolutely sick of warfare. Ghost saw the clones' future of sacrificing themselves for the Republic, and he just didn't vibe with it and wanted out. In 22 BBY, he conspired with another Republic soldier who wanted to leave the Republic, Greebs Kishpog. Together, they contacted the CIS to defect, but were told that, to guarantee their place in the Separatists' army, they had to hand the CIS control of Osnek, a planet crucial to the Republic's control of the Cadmamu sector. Ghost and Kishpog planned a mission to the planet led by Sergeant Banks, a clone on his very first assignment they believed would follow them blindly. Once planetside, the squad went on a recon mission in an LAAT over an area that was supposed to be free of Separatist forces. However, their intel proved incorrect, and the clone unit stumbled upon a large droid army that shot them out of the sky. Several clones were killed in the crash, and the survivors found themselves facing down hundreds of battle droids. The unit barely managed to take out the droids and retreat to safety, where they made camp and repaired a communications array. Thanks to the array, Kishpog contacted them to inform them of a droid command center nearby that he ordered them to secure despite their dead and injured. Before dawn, the clones pushed on through rough terrain, soon stumbling upon an ancient settlement of Toma, the local people of Osnek, that wasn't supposed to be there. The Toma overwhelmed the clones by sheer numbers and captured them, but when Separatist droids attacked from the trees, the clones convinced their captors to ally with them and fight off the droids. Only 3 clones made it out of that encounter, abandoning the rest to complete their mission. Ghost, Banks, and Psyche, one of the regulars. When they reached the droid command center, they snuck in and prepared to split up. Before they could, however, Ghost shot Psyche in the back and explained to a disbelieving Sergeant Banks that their real mission was to destroy the facility, not to secure it, and that it was actually a power plant. Banks immediately resisted, but Ghost shot at him and ran off deeper into the power plant. When questioned by the squad mate he'd betrayed, Ghost just said he'd woken up and didn't want to die for the Republic anymore. The sergeant didn't give up, however. He snuck up on the traitor, but Ghost was ready and threw a grenade his way. The two grappled on the ground, each fighting for their life, but in the end, Banks, who had gotten his name thanks to his ability to instantly calculate ricochets in his head, used his talent to bounce a blaster bolt off the metal panel of the wall straight into the back of Ghost's helmet, killing him. The loyal clone then deactivated the bombs and donned the trainer's blue painted helmet, which he wore to trick Kish Pug into thinking the mission had been successful. When the other traitor picked him up, he realized the deception too late. Banks incapacitated and arrested him. Although the sergeant faced a military tribunal when he returned with his commander in shackles, he was acquitted of all charges. And there you have it. Even among the most loyal soldiers in the galaxy, there were still bad apples that put their own wants and ideals above those of the Republic. Excluding Order 66 itself, what do you think was the greatest betrayal in the entirety of Star Wars? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.